Good afternoon and welcome to another inReach Field Experience webinar. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Montana 700 series. Before we get started, my name is Chip Noble. I'm a product manager here at Garmin. I am also an off-road enthusiast, as you can see by new side-by-side vehicle that my parents got for their property up in central Maine. And we took it out for a fun ride a couple of weekends ago, and I brought the Montana 750i with me. So I am not only an off-road enthusiast, but I'm also an inReach user. That will be the backdrop for our conversation today while we look at the Montana 700 series and everything that it has to offer. So look for a few pictures to pop in from a little trip that I took. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But we are here today to talk about the Montana 700 and all the things that make it so exciting. The most important right here at the top, a touchscreen for our GPS navigator and our inReach device. Very exciting, and so we're going to see how that can be combined. It's the best of our handheld GPS functionality, and it also ties in some really nice off-road navigation capability. So to get started, let's talk about there are three different models for the Montana, and they build on top of each other. The Montana 700, that's the base model. It has the Topo Active maps and the large 5-inch touchscreen and everything that you look for in a handheld GPS device, rugged for your off-road use. From there, we have the Montana 700i. This device adds in the inReach technology, and you can see from this photo, it has the SOS message here and the little button on the side of the device right there by the label. That's the SOS door. You open that and push the button behind it. The third model in the lineup is the 750i, and this has the camera built into it. And I realize as I look at this picture, I apologize. I took a couple of photos from the side of Mount Blue while we were out on our drive, and they did come out quite nicely. I was pleased with the performance of that 8-megapixel camera on the Montana 750i. So give that a consideration as you look at the models as well. So the difference is the Montana 700i and 750i obviously have inReach built into them. The 750i adds the camera. That's the main differences in the lineup. Let's take a look at the important features for the device. Obviously, that large 5-inch color touchscreen display is the huge benefit with the Montana device. I like the GPS Map 66i for my backcountry explorations and upland hunting and all those different things. But the Montana, if you have the ability to carry that with you or mount it in your off-road vehicle, that large touchscreen was pretty amazing while we were out on our ATV drive. So let's look, we have a WVGA transflective dual orientation display. That's a nice thing. This is the first device we have where you can use it in portrait or in landscape. The pictures from marketing, this is not one of my photos, the pictures from marketing are mostly in portrait. I did have the device mounted in landscape in our side-by-side, so have some good comparisons there. It is a capacitive touchscreen display, full QWERTY keyboard. We're going to see that when we look at messaging, and that was an amazing thing for me. It's the first time I've been able to use a touchscreen on the device to send messages. Worked really hard. The team worked really hard on the display for its sensitivity. You can use the touchscreen with a glove. It has settings. If it's raining, it will handle all of those things. It is 50% larger than the previous Montana model. It's a rugged design, certainly like all of our handheld devices, durable and water resistant, and has been tested to military spec. For those familiar with it, the MIL standard 810, that is for temperature, if you drop it, if you get it wet, if you vibrate it, which was certainly something that was happening on that ATV ride. Let's look at our map options for the Montana, and one difference that I actually forgot to mention, we'll cover it here. Topo Active maps are on all of the devices. It comes preloaded with topographic maps for US and Canada. We're all familiar with Topo Active. City Navigator is also included in the 700i and the 750i devices. That gives us our street mapping with turn-by-turn directions. That was pretty handy. Federal public lands are on all the devices for those of you that are hunting out west or just like to go to the public lands. That data is part of all of these devices. You can see the overlay of parks and places that have been designated by the government as public lands. Bird's eye satellite imagery, the large 5-inch display with the transflective view. It really was beautiful. I've got pictures that surprised me how well they came out in looking at bird's eye imagery in this large display. Very, very impressive. Photorealistic views. We're going to take a look at some of those. And then the device also has multi-GNSS support. That means it works with several different satellite constellations. I say GPS, that's the US-based one. Works with Galileo as well, and that increases the chance of a good GPS fix in lots of challenging environments. So for the inReach enabled models, we've talked a lot on these calls about the inReach features. This device has all of the expected inReach functionality, two-way messaging, send and receive a message, uses tracking, has a 100% global Iridium satellite network, interactive SOS, and so you will be able to declare the SOS using the button on the side of the device. There's a 24/7 monitoring service, and they will interact with you. They'll ask what's the nature of your emergency. They'll tell you the estimated time of arrival for help. So very, very valuable feature. Map share is one of my favorites. This is how we send our location as inReach users out to our friends and family, or possibly even our followers on Facebook, and let them see our location. They can go to our map share page. They can see a breadcrumb trail for where we've been. They can select us as a user, and they can send us a message, and then we can reply to them. The map share feature is very important. If any of you are not familiar with map share, definitely check it out. Make it part of your tool set for your trips. inReach weather forecast. I took a weather forecast or got a weather forecast, I should say, while I was on the trip. We'll take a look at how that came back. Very useful tool because you can fetch land forecast, marine forecast. You can get a premium forecast with an extended duration. And this is kind of a fun one. The large touchscreen display and the full QWERTY keyboard has an emoji keyboard with up to 1,300 wonderful ways to express your emotions through text messaging. And I joke, but you can say a lot with a couple of emojis, even if it's just a thumbs up, got your message. So lots that you can do with the emoji keyboard. And then we put this note on a lot of our slides is just to make sure everyone remembers this is an inReach enabled device, and that means that you have to have an Iridium subscription in order to take advantage of those messaging features. That's sending and receiving messages, tracking, even declaring SOS. Make sure that you have an active subscription. So let's take a look at the features. Explore compatible. You can use the Montana with the Explore app. It allows you to sync data from the Explore website where you did your planning through the Explore app down onto the device. The Montana has a very large display, but sometimes you may be doing your planning, in your house, and you want to just take your phone out and do a quick plan for your trip for the weekend. Then you can sync that to the Montana device. That lets you send data down to the device and also sync any track data or waypoints, things you create in the field, back up into the Garmin cloud. And there it is, Garmin Explore website. Got ahead of myself. So that's the trip planning, the unlimited cloud storage, and it's also the Explore website is where you go to manage your subscription. So we've covered a lot of these in the past, but wanted to share Montana, definitely compatible with the Explore app and website. So some folks are interested in the spec sheet. Here it is. This is all the details on the Montana, and you can see there the display size, 5-inch diagonal. Resolution, the weight of the device, 14.5 ounces. It's certainly on the larger end of the spectrum, but this is for folks, as exactly like my example, I had a Honda side-by-side ATV that carried the weight of the device, and I got the benefit of that really beautiful 5-inch display. Has a rechargeable lithium-ion battery that's included. Note that that's replaceable. If you find that you are traveling for an extended period of time and you don't have access to recharging, you can purchase an additional lithium-ion battery pack. Looking at battery life, the team has worked really hard on expedition mode with this device. You get 18 hours with GPS mode. That's just standard device use. And then expedition mode will bring you to 330 hours. So quite a long time with expedition mode, and I know most of you are probably familiar. Expedition mode does certain things like turn off the display so that it doesn't use a lot of power there. It reduces your logging interval, so it's not writing as many points, but it still gives you a good breadcrumb trail. And it turns off any Bluetooth pairing to your phone. And the Montana doesn't really need to be paired to a phone for that other input mechanism. So expedition mode could be an option for people looking for a better battery life. Water resistant, 16 gigabytes internal, comes with the preloaded maps we already talked about. Lots of good things here. So from here, I'll give you just a little, excuse me, this was the fun part of the trip. So this is my dad and myself here. And what we planned to do was use the Montana to navigate from my parents' backyard to Rangeley. There's a very popular ATV trail in Maine. It's called the Moose Loop ATV Trail. It goes from Weld to Rangeley, loops around, and comes back. And so a lot of people travel on it. And you'll see we didn't quite make it all the way to Rangeley, but we had high hopes. This was our path. My mom was going to meet us in Rangeley for lunch, and so she spent some of the trip while we were driving at their house, monitoring our location on this MapShare page, which was pretty cool. And then a little bit later, when it was closer to lunchtime, she actually got in their vehicle and she had my GPS map 66I with her, and we sent messages back and forth between the Montana that I had in the ATV and the GPS map 66I that she had in the vehicle. It was very cool to have that two-way capability, because up in this part of Maine, cell phone coverage is pretty spotty. So it was a great testament to the tool. We're going to see in a minute our success was hampered by things I could not have anticipated. But let's take more look at the device. So the menu for the for the Montana, it's obviously with that 5-inch display, much larger. You have some really crisp icons, large, easy to read when it's on the dash. Configurable, take a note of that little plus sign down at the bottom. You can configure your home screen for anybody that felt there was too much or too little. You can get in there and make adjustments. Has a sub menu, that's the icon in the lower right corner. This is an example of the compass view. And when you press that little hamburger, the 3 bars, you get to see the menu for any page. And just an example there. Key pages on the device. Here's an example. This is that really easy to see transflective display, and this is the Topo Active map. And we're looking at a section of the trail that cuts between Little Blue and Mount Blue, the mountains that are really the focal point for the state park. And the area, the purple highlight, is the route we were following along the Mount Blue Road. So the arrow, that's our location, pretty straightforward. We've seen that, and it moves along the map. This is a compass view we just looked at. The arrow points in along your heading. I'm following the route in this example. We have a trip computer, same, nice, large, easy to see display for any of you. You know, my dad certainly appreciated the fact that it was easy for him to see those icons, and I appreciated, because I didn't realize how much you get jostled a little bit in an ATV going along some of those rooted and rocky trails, but it was easy to see that display. An altimeter, the device has sensors, altimeter, barometer, compass, and that allows you to capture your GPS and your barometer elevation as you go, and you see this nice profile, very handy display. So let's look at the mapping, because the mapping on the device is really exceptional. And just for some backstory, this is my dad. We signed into the trail registry here doing the map. So here we are. You can zoom in and out. Everyone knows how to do this, you know, just like your phone. The plus minus is a touchscreen tap, or you can pinch and zoom like you do with your phone, find the area you're interested in. You can use the map layer. That's the button that looks like 2 map layers underneath the plus and minus sign. This allows you to conveniently switch and turn on and off your imagery, your public lands, go between topographic data and that street map view. You see I tapped on imagery. There's my aerial image. Zoom in. This is where we were signing in. That little message bubble that's over near the edge of the tree line, that's exactly where my stepdad was signing in. And you see as we go. Then you can also tap on that location, and that is where I sent a message to my mom who was at home. So the title for that is Mom at Home. And if you tap on the bar up at the top, that info bar, you get to see the message I wrote was at Mount Blue State Park, headed over to Phillips. So a little bit about that, the map layers that you have to choose from. And then the menu button down at the corner. We've talked about menus. So let's look a little bit at the bird's eye, because that's really nice. And this is the actual view. This is a picture of the Montana in the ATV, and so that's the real picture that you see with that high resolution bird's eye aerial imagery. Really is a game changer for people using GPS devices. If I didn't have the aerial image on, you saw on the previous screen, it was some greens, some contour lines, maybe some browns for land cover use. But here we see the buildings, we see the actual parking lot. It's wonderful stuff. So to download imagery, first you have to make sure you're connected. I'm just showing you. Go into settings, you go into Wi-Fi, add the network. Then you go to the bird's eye icon, which is directly under the inReach icon, bird's eye direct. Choose to download. I had already downloaded 3 chunks for the trip. Specify the location. I did that by picking off the map. And then you can give it a name. And you see here I panned. There was a chunk in between the 3 towns, and I wanted to get that. So I selected it. I choose highest. I have plenty of space on my device, and the downloads are very fast. In just a matter of minutes, you can get high detail imagery for a large radius. And you saw that was a very long drive on an ATV. We only did a third of it, and it took the whole day. And I managed it in 4 downloads. And now my ATV trail is calculating and downloading. And then there it is. That was all done over Wi-Fi. Navigation, here's the problem that we had on our trip. We were very surprised to see how many blowdowns had happened in the previous. There was a storm that particular weekend. So we had our little battery powered chainsaw, and we did some trail maintenance rather than getting all the way to Rangeley. But robust navigation, we're going to look at how to create a waypoint. And you do this by going to the mark waypoint icon on the page. When this view comes up, you can edit the symbol. And I apologize, I just noticed the time. I'm going to move a little faster because I have a lot to cover. You can enter the name, Mount Blue State Park. It becomes a waypoint. Gets dropped into your waypoint list. These are all the waypoints that I had for that particular activity. And there it is on the map. More blowdowns. So we're going to show how to create a route. And by creating a route, you see the folder. This is Route Planner. Go into the Route Planner, you choose Create Route, and then you specify your first point. I chose my points based on the towns that we were going to. So we started in Weld, we went to Phillips, and then to Rangeley. Here I am selecting the Phillips waypoint, and you see that Use button on the bottom. When I choose that, it puts it in my list. I did it a second time. I chose Rangeley, and then I had my route, Weld to Rangeley. I choose the back button to go back to the route list. More blowdowns. And you can see I'm building up why we didn't make it to Rangeley. I totally thought we were going to be able to, but not even close. So to navigate the route that we just created, you can come here to the home page, and you see the little magnifying glass in the bottom. That's the Where To button. Tap the Where To button. Brings up, and I chose route, but I could have chosen any of those items. I could have gone to an address. I could have gone to another waypoint. I could have chosen something from the points of interest database. I chose route because I planned it. I choose Weld to Rangeley. I see the route, missed a little bit of my aerial imagery. I select go. I can choose the activity type that I want to use while I'm traveling. With the city navigator, I have access to that turn-by-turn driving directions. I could also choose a hiking trail, or if I wanted to go mountain biking. And then after it calculates, you see here my aerial imagery with my purple route highlight on top of it. And this says in 5.1 miles, turn left onto Rangeley Road. And we're following this dirt road through the woods. Navigate using the map, and I apologize, I didn't show a compass screen, but that is the other view. And again, handheld GPS, you just cycle through the different map views, or pages. So looking at navigation, one of the things that I wanted to show you is another feature, and it's actually track back. We use the device to navigate, and this is actually just outside of where we had lunch in Phillips. And I thought this would be a nice thing to see. So to use trackback, all you have to do is press the power button, tap the power button or swipe down. And when you do that, this is a video, so I don't have other screens, but you can see the activity recording at the top, and then you can select that activity recording, and one of the options is the map, and we'll see that in a second, and you choose trackback. So, and then the route shows up on your map. We had some trouble when we were setting things up. I don't think the audio is going to work, so I'll just talk through it while it plays. And so let's see. This is, so I'm introducing what's happening here, and in a second you're going to see me go to the home screen, and then I'm going to swipe down from the top, and that because it's a touch screen, there's the view, and I chose the activity, and then over on the far right, I click on the map, and there's the trackback button. It was a lot better with the sound of the ATV running in the background, but that is how you use the Montana to do a trackback and follow your GPS track line back to your start. It was really handy for us actually, because the trails in Mount Blue and between Phillips and Weld there were a lot of new trails, things that some of it hadn't been mapped, that sort of thing. So we were able to very cleanly and quickly follow the way that we got there by reversing the track there. Whoop. And so now let's look at some messaging. And this is a picture of muddy water because there was a lot of that while we were out there. You can send a message just like any of our inReach devices. First, let's look at how to send a preset. I choose the inReach. It's an activity inReach, and inside of it are all the different things we're familiar with for inReach. And one of them is sending a message. And then I can choose if I want to send a preset or if I want to create a new message. If I choose preset, this brings up the list of messages that have been pre-programmed. I did that on my Explore website ahead of time. I like the, I'm checking in, everything's okay, send that to my mom. If I wanted to send a custom message, same process, I go to the inReach folder and I choose messages, I choose new message. I choose, do I want to type it? Do I want to send a quick text? If I choose quick text, here's a list of all my quick text messages. I could just pick one and I don't have to type it. It's a time-saving feature. I'm checking in, everything's okay. I'm having a great time. I'm going to be late. I pick that and it gets sent to my recipient. Here's the two, and if I was doing a custom message, who do I want to send it to? What do I want to write? If I choose the to field, I can choose from my social media, Facebook, MapShare, Twitter, or I can type a recipient. In this case, I was typing my mom's address. That would have popped it in for her email. And then if I wanted to send a custom message, you can see just like on our 66i or our inReach Explorer Plus, just start typing like your phone. We're going to populate some suggested words. The touchscreen makes it really easy to pick those suggested words, so keep an eye out. We are at the, as what I was typing, I was going to say we were at the state park. After you've typed the message, hit send. And a note here to remember that your presets and quick text are managed from the website. So here's another video about replying to a message. It's going to be tricky because the sound isn't going to work for you guys. But the key is you choose, when the message came in, my mom sent me a message. We received it and we wanted to reply to her. And I thought, well, I'll take a video and share it with all of you. The inReach messages, you go to the inReach page, look at messages, you see the conversation, you choose reply, and I'm going to do that here, and hopefully you can see it in the video. It's running. I hit reply, and I sort of chose type message, and then I type as fast as I can because videoing someone typing is really boring, but I tried to use a couple of the shortcuts there, and I said, yeah, we have the map and we're headed to Phillips for lunch. She was just checking on our progress to see how we were doing. And when I finished, one thing you're not going to get to hear, but I hit the check mark to say that I was done typing. Wait for it. There you go. Check mark and hit send. And before the video ends, you see that little blue arrow? It's kind of hard to see it, but there's a little blue arrow telling me it's sending. I talked for a second. It whistles right here at the end. The message went out that quickly. So if anyone ever wonders, how long does it take to send an inReach message? This is a Montana in landscape orientation in relatively dense tree cover, and it's sent very quickly. So we don't need to watch it twice. Tracking, very straightforward. We'll just step through. You go to the inReach page, you choose tracking, you start tracking. Very simple. Map share, this is that we talked about in the beginning. Send your map share link to friends and family. This is how you do it. It pops up, you put in their address, you hit send. And so it says that little, I'm starting my trip, but it also includes a link to your map share page. So you can do that before you go out. You don't have to remember to do it from the website ahead of time. And send message at the end. You go into the inReach page, you choose inReach weather. And this again, this is the satellite-based weather forecast. And you get a little explanation, your go-to connection for off-the-grid weather. Choose new forecast. You can choose basic or premium. I choose premium. It's $1 for premium message. It costs you the message plan, one message for basic. Premium gives you more frequent weather forecasts over a longer duration. And then you can specify, I usually choose my location because I want to know weather for where I am. I could actually project the forecast to like a waypoint or something like that. If I wanted to know what's the weather in Rangeley right now, even though we didn't make it that far, I could have received the forecast there. And then you could choose marine if you wanted to. And then this is what the forecast looked like when it came in. This was about a week ago, and it was a beautiful sunny day, not too hot, not too cold. You can get the forecast. And remember, there are charges for weather forecasts. So SOS, we were fortunate we did not need to use the SOS feature, but I did take some screenshots from a simulator so you can all see that. In this picture, I wanted you to see that orange button that is just above the label Montana 750i. That's the SOS door. They all look the same on inReach devices, little orange piece, and you pull the door open and you push and hold the SOS button until it declares. Wait for this to appear. As soon as you see this, you can release the button. We have an SOS webinar that you should check out if you have more SOS questions. This is mostly just to show how it looks on the large display. I have an emergency response. I think I broke my ankle. And then when everything's been resolved, I cancel my SOS, and I would get this notice from the device saying, sending a request to cancel. It will close once it's been confirmed. The SOS webinar that many of you saw is linked here in this file, and that will be available to people. If you go to our support site, you can search for the inReach device and look up the SOS webinar as well. So check your gear before you go. inReach utilities, this is one of the places I go to see the status of things like my, well, mail check is the first one. You can come here if you want to see if there are any messages waiting for you. The device does check for messages on your track send interval. So if you are tracking at a 10-minute interval, every 10 minutes it looks to see if you have a message. Otherwise, the device checks in once every hour to see if you have any messages. The communication test is a tool I encourage everyone to use before you go out on a trip. If it's been a while, just make sure your subscription is still active. This is straightforward. You choose the test option, you watch it go through acquiring, sending, and waiting for a response, and then you get this nice reassuring message that says your subscription is currently active and you are cleared to go out on your adventure. Plan usage and plan details, I did not take a screenshot of those, but you can see them if you look at your device. It'll tell you how many messages and whatnot that you've used with your device, and plan details tells you your subscription plan. So those were kind of all the software screens that we wanted to cover, and I zipped through them kind of quick, but we will have questions, time for questions at the end for anyone. These are the accessories that you can use with the Montana. I mentioned the lithium-ion battery pack. There is also a AA battery pack that we did not picture here. That is for the 700. The I model, we recommend that you use the lithium-ion pack to have a good power source for sending those battery-intensive Iridium messages. There is an external GPS and Iridium antenna for the Montana. That's an important thing to talk about. That means if you have a vehicle that doesn't have a clear view from your dash, or you want to mount the device in a place where it doesn't have that clear view, you can use an external antenna. Also, some mounts for the device. There's an auto clip with a speaker that has a suction cup, and then several different models that allow you to connect things like a bicycle or a motorcycle, and there's a marine mount. there's also a powered mount, so you can power it when it's in your vehicle. It's very handy. Let's look a little bit at the Explore app, and then we will open it for some questions. The Explore app, for anyone that hasn't been following along with us, the newer Garmin devices like the GPS Map 66i, the 86i for Marine, the Montana 700 series, those work with the Explore app. The Explore app is a lot like the EarthMate app, has some new features like collections and a library for organizing your user data. But in general, same functionality as EarthMate, just this is designed for the newer devices. You can download your maps. You can search for locations when you're inside cellular. You can create waypoints, these screens to show you how to do that. Very straightforward. The plus sign up in the upper left corner underneath the map layers, that's the key on how you go to create waypoints and routes. And this screenshot is actually a little bit old because I'm going to show you in a second. You can control your layers. This is where you turn on and off all those collections you're making. So I made the Moose Loop Trail collection. I could choose to show it on the map or hide it by finding the collection and toggling it on and off. GPX import, you see the screenshots changed. These are new. GPX import is a new feature we've released just recently, and it allows you to take data that you may have found online at a third-party data site, or maybe you're just sharing your data with a friend. They've sent you something in GPX form. You can import it now. So I choose import GPX. These are a list of the files that I found in doing some testing with the feature, and they are very detailed layers out on the Pacific Crest Trail showing shelters and mountain summits. And so I select it and it does the import successfully. And then you can see there's just a ton of data out there, but I can't imagine creating that all by hand. And I found someone who was an expert in that particular area, got their GPX file and imported it. Cool new feature. The library is available in the Explore site. This is just how to organize your user data into waypoints, tracks, and routes, and those collections. And I, again, got ahead of myself, but here's some of the collections that I have: a Mount Rainier bucket list hike at some point, fishing, Pleasant Mountain. You can show and hide it on the map. We talked about that. Messaging, also straightforward. Go to the messages page and you can type in your recipient, you can type in your message. This is the tracking feature that allows you to start and stop tracking on your Montana by using your Explore app. And then here's the device view. This is how the Montana looks in the device list. This is my activity on the Montana. You can declare an SOS from the app and it will trigger SOS on the Montana. That's in case your device is mounted in a place where it's not accessible to you in the moment. You can just take your phone and do the declare using your phone. Cancel the SOS, same process, cancel it using your phone as well. Looking at the Explore website, again, we've covered this. This is where you go to manage your device. So you can come into Explore, you can look at the account. You can do a lot of things in here like manage your personal contact information, manage your billing information. It's also, we always encourage people to double check this before they go out because it's where you manage your emergency contacts. You want to make sure that the correct people are listed and they'll be available should you have an emergency during your trip. You can manage your inReach device. You can update your subscription. And you see here, these are the plans: safety, recreation, and expedition, and the rates here in the US. And you can also find directions to sync. And I apologize, my screenshots are slightly out of date here because the inReach Explorer Plus uses a little different process. The Montana is going to sync user data back and forth between the device and the Explore website using the Explore app, which is a little bit different. But your firmware updates for the device, you do that by connecting and going to Garmin Express. Instructions, the instructions for your device are still available in the Explore site. They just won't look like the inReach Explorer Plus. And if you have any questions about best practices or core features for these devices, we have these 2 webinars also available on our support site. A lot more information there. And then additional resources. I know that was a lot, and we kind of hurried through the last pieces. The important content was around the Montana in the beginning, but if you have additional questions about the Explore app, explore.garmin.com. I said app, the Explore website. Explore.garmin.com is where you go to manage your plan and your account. And then our support site, our team works very hard to have very useful documentation, white papers, answers to questions, that sort of thing on support.garmin.com. And my favorite is the Garmin blog. That's where we put all of the great inReach stories that we hear from users like yourselves out there who are out in the backcountry using things. You can read about SOS stories and different ways that people are using inReach on their adventures. So that's what we have for today, but I'd like to open things up. I have Dana with me, and we would like to answer some questions from folks that might have them. Dana, are you with me?